Hi, this is Natalie. Thank you for listening to Crossroads Church, where we are bringing a real God to real people. I believe you'll be inspired by today's message.
Good morning. How is everybody? Good. Well, I'm Joel, and I'm the teaching pastor. I've been gone the last few weeks. It's really good to be back with you guys. I was in Florida for 2 weekends in a row speaking, and it was great, but it's always good to be back home in Texas. So, yeah. So we're going to start a new series this morning called Born to Lead, and I'm super pumped about it. Now, before you check out and think, well, I'm not a leader, this doesn't apply to me, I'm going to tell you something here. I need you to focus and pay attention this morning, because by the time this is over, I'm going to convince you you actually are a leader and you don't know it. You have a secret identity as a leader. So we're going to talk about that this morning. But before we do, I wanted to do two real quick things. First of all, some of you know I wrote a book that came out on September 1st. It's called Love Slows Down. It's available in the back if you haven't gotten a copy of it. But I'm going to be teaching a Lakewood church in Houston. They're using Love Slows Down as their marriage book for the month. So all their marriage classes, they're focusing on using that book and the content in it. And since I'm going to be teaching, I'm going to be live streaming between services today from 10:15 to 10:40. And since I was going to be teaching them, I thought, well, shoot, I should just open it up to the congregation if you guys want to stick around. So it'll be a little bit unique. If you want to stick around for a 25-minute talk after this about, well, today we're talking about dealing with anger. So what to do and how to deal with anger in your relationships. And I know that you don't get angry, but your spouse might. So you might want to come and check that out. But, and they're probably angry at you, honestly, right? But that's the way it rolls in my house. I don't get angry, but my wife sure does at me, right? So we're going to talk about that. It's going to be a short thing. There's only childcare for kids above 5. Okay, so what you do is if you want to do that, go check your kids out after this service, and then we will have actually Pastor Natalie is going to watch all of our kids in the back room here. If you want for kids over 5, if they're under 5 and you want to stay and you can keep them, kind of subdued, you can sit in the back. I'm going to set up a little camera here and do the live stream. But if you want to, those who want to stick around, you can sit right up here in the front. You can sit wherever you want. You can sit way in the back if you want. But I have to have that camera right there for the live stream. So that's going to be happening. I'm going to be doing that this week, next week, and probably the week after that. So if you want to take part of it, you're not required. I won't question your salvation if you don't stick around. But I'm just kidding. But I will question it. But I'm just kidding. No, really, just kidding. But you're welcome to stick around for that. Second thing, I got to tell you something super cool that happened. So I don't know if I told you guys, but I created some little devotionals on the YouVersion Bible app for the book. So we did one about anger. I wrote one about how to deal with anxiety and fear. And then I wrote another one about the book Love Slows Down. It's there's an app called the Bible app. It's YouVersion. And it's got these reading plans. Guys, 32,000 people have downloaded that. Isn't that crazy? I'm blown away. It's just all the Lord, because I've done a lot of stuff in the past that got like 32 people downloading it. So this is a lot better. 32,000 to me is better than 32 when you put a lot of work into something. So I'm kind of excited about that. But if you haven't checked out that on the Bible app, those are available. You can just type in, I think you can type in my name, or you can type in Love Slows Down or Calming Anger. And anyway, just thought I'd let you know about that. So we're going to talk about leadership this morning, born to lead. And here's the thing about leadership. If you haven't figured this out yet, everything in our world rises or falls on leadership. And some of you have been around some really bad leaders. And you've said, man, leaders are horrible. I don't like leaders. And some of you, though, have been around really good leaders. And you say, man, I would aspire to be that kind of a leader. And we're going to talk this morning about how in one way or another, we are all leaders. And we have to recognize this fact, because if we've been around a bad leader, you've known how much damage it can do. If you're around a bad leader and you say, man, that person is just abusing their position. And here's the thing about it. If you don't realize that you're a leader, you could accidentally abuse your position too and not even realize it. And you could be the bad leader that you're complaining about others being if you're not aware of it. So it's very important that you recognize that you're a leader. But I want to start with a story. Right when I was 18, I got a job at a big company. And I remember thinking, man, it was a big company. I was like, I want to rise in the ranks here. And like, what can I do that makes me stand out from everyone else? Because I was just one employee. I was hired as an hourly employee. I was working on hourly salary. And I started listening the first day I was there. And I was like, man, it was a customer service job. And I was like, these people use a lot of profanity. Now, it wasn't profanity in front of the customers. Usually it went something like this. Oh, thank you so much for your business. Have a great day. And then they'd come to the break room and be like, Dad, beep, 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 beep. And you're like, whoa. But they had the smile on their face. And so I thought, one of the quickest ways I could probably stand out here is to not use profanity. So I just was really careful about my words, really guarded my language. And about 6 days in, somebody came up to me and goes, hey, man, you don't cuss, do you? I was like, well, I try not to. He's like, huh. And he walked away. And a couple people afterwards, like after about 2 weeks, were like, hey, we noticed you don't cuss. You don't use profanity. And I was like, yeah, I try not to. And like, Finally, one of them goes, you a Christian? And I was like, yeah, I am. And one of them, I'll never forget one of the guys, he started making fun of me. He's like, you're a Christian. He started ragging on pastors, and I wasn't going to tell him my dad was one. But he started ragging on him. But here's the thing. Immediately, people noticed it because I wasn't normal in that world. Just like that, they noticed it. It only took like 6 days before they started noticing it. And here's the funny thing about it. Funny thing or cool thing, I don't know what it is. The people that made fun of me, when stuff started going bad in their life, you know what? You know who they came to? Me. Like, hey, you think you could maybe, I don't know, say a prayer or something for me? And all of a sudden I had instant influence because I had already established myself as being just a little bit different from the norm. Now, here's the reality. I know that in your life, you're in some situations right now where you're in some situations, some places where the norm is something that is very negative. Maybe at your job, maybe it's just a very negative work environment. Maybe in your home, it's a very negative work environment. And you're trying to set the tone, you're trying to make things change. Maybe with your kids, you're just like, oh my gosh, things have gotten out of my control with my kids. How do I change the environment around me? And a lot of us, at some point, we get to a point where we're asking this question: how do I get their attention? And we live in this loud world where everybody's calling for your attention. And the challenge we face is, in every environment, we're like, how do I get the attention of people, especially in a negative environment? Because in a negative environment, you tend to get sucked into that negative environment. And at your work, you may have a boss that's just a horrible boss. And you're saying, how do I get my boss's attention to help him see that he's a horrible boss? Because I can't go tell him he's a horrible boss. I'll get fired, right? Well, some of you have done that. And you know what happened. You can take this job and shove it. Well, you can too, right? So you've got your work environment. Some of you in your marriage, it's just so much conflict. You're always fighting and yelling at each other. And listen to me, I'm not immune from this. Emily and I, we've been having some great conversations lately. COVID has just elevated everything in the house. If you haven't noticed that, I mean, we're just butting heads on everything, stupid stuff. Like how to cook a thing or this. I'm like, why are we fighting about this? But there's just this heightened thing right now where we're like, and sometimes I'm like, how do I get her attention to know you don't put the forks in the dishwasher that way, right? I'm just kidding. She's back there looking at me. I see fire. Shh. Oh, come on now. What is this? All right. The peanut gallery in the back. Okay. You want to get that person's attention, right? You want to get your spouse's attention. You want to get your boss's attention. Maybe you're trying to get your kids' attention. And you're asking, how do I get their attention? Well, here's the thing. The best way to get somebody's attention is to do something not normal. Because normal things, your brain is programmed to filter out normal things. That's why sometimes you see those commercials and you're like, that is the most bizarre commercial ever. But man, that sure stuck with me. Not normal, but it stuck with you, right? Normal things don't catch attention. So what you have to do is you have to figure out what's not normal. And if you start doing what's not normal, at some point, sooner or later, if you do it consistently, you're going to start to have an effect on people. And this is where we get to leadership. Because here's the thing. Leadership is simply having an influence. And influence is the ability to have an effect. Leadership is not a title. You don't become a leader because you've got a title. And you know this because there's people at work that have the title and they are not the leader. You know who the leader is. It's very easy to see who the leader is. You know, with sometimes watching people with their kids, you know which parent is the leader. That's not that one. That's the leader in the family, right? Leadership is simply influence. And here's the thing about it. Every one of us have influence because every one of us have an effect on someone. In fact, here's a list of a couple people you have an effect on. You know you have an effect on your spouse. When I'm down in the dumps, grumpy, growling, wake up grouchy, I have an effect on my wife. And it's not a good effect. And it ends up, sometimes she'll respond to that with her own grumpiness. We have an effect. So I end up having an effect on my spouse. You have an effect on your kids. And here's the thing about it. I hear a lot of people say, why won't they listen to me? I say, well, that's because they're too busy watching you. They're watching what you do, not what you say. You've had an influence through your actions. They've watched your behavior and they're like, why do I need to listen to you? I know how you act. I've seen how you respond. And we say, I don't know what to do. Well, here's the thing. You influence your kids. And here's the really hard part about it. In the first few years of their life, in the first 5 to 7 years, you are the core influence. In fact, they've shown psychologically those first 5 to 7 years, man, a kid figures out what the world is like, what they think the world is like based on watching you. And you're just out living your life, just doing your thing. But they're picking up what life should look like based on you as their sole influence. Because if you think about it, until they go to daycare or preschool or something, there's no other influence on their life. You're it. You're having an influence on your kid. And here's the thing. Other people are having an influence on your kids too. And if you aren't the primary influence, you don't get to dictate how they respond. Because whoever's having the most influence is how they're going to react, how they're going to decide to live. You have an influence on your extended family. You ever thought about that? You have extended family that is not looking forward to Thanksgiving with you. You have extended family that you are not looking forward to Thanksgiving with them because they have an effect on you every time you get around them. You're like, oh, uncle, does he have to come this year? Right? You have an effect. You have an effect on your coworkers. And you know this. You start getting around, complaining about the boss, and you just kind of feed off of each other. And all of a sudden, it just gets really bad. I've done it myself, so I know. You have an effect on your neighbors. Those loud parties you're having. Playing Chris Tomlin music. Christian worship music. Loud, and the cops get called. But it's Christian worship music. You've had an effect on your neighbors. Not a good one. I don't care if it's Christian worship music. It's not. That didn't work out well, right? You have an effect. And here's the other thing. You have an effect on yourself. You know that stuff, that self-talk going on in your brain. We're going to talk about this in 3 weeks, and I'm bringing in the best person I know to talk about this. Best leader I know is my dad. He's going to come talk in 3 weeks about this, but we're going to talk about how much you have an effect on yourself by what you're thinking, what you're consuming, what you're taking in, and how you're living. So my point with all of this is, if you have an effect on anyone, you're a leader. And so here's the thing. You're a leader, whether you like it or not. And if you don't become aware of the fact that everything you're doing is having an effect and impact on people around you, you may end up becoming that leader that you don't like. Because you're thinking, nobody's paying attention to me. I'm just living my life. No. A lot of people are paying attention to you. And here's the really challenging part. If you're a Christian and you've said it to anybody, they're really paying attention. So you don't get the luxury of not being a leader. In fact, Jesus, in the greatest sermon ever given in the history of the world by any spiritual leader, he said this. He said, guys, you are the salt of the earth. You bring flavor to the earth. You have an effect on things. You know how salt, they say that salt makes everything taste like it's supposed to taste. If you've been in cooking classes, they say that salt is so important because it brings out flavors of things. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its ability to be salty, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. He says, you have an effect. You're like a flavor that has an effect on people. Then he says it this way, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Now, you ever notice that when things get dark really quick, you can't see anything? But slowly your eyes adjust, and then little lights become bright. And you go, oh, these are really like, oh, it's not too bad in here, until something like this happens. And somebody turns something like this on. And you go, whoa, that's really bright. You ever had that? And you've lost perspective on what real brightness is because the norm has become so dark until somebody flips on a light. And it's really different. You guys can turn the lights back on. And I think this is what Jesus is talking about when he says to us, you're the light of the world. He's saying, guys, don't count on the world to have any light. Because all you're going to find in the world is negativity and darkness. That's all you're going to find. And the way you're going to break through it, the way you're going to cut through it, is for you to be a bright and shining light. Not a dim light where people are like, oh yeah, that's a nice light, kind of like everything else around us. Where people literally where things have to get really dark before they see how bright you actually are. No, I'm talking about a kind of brightness that people go, holy moly, you are bright. There's something different about you. But to get to that place, you got to do something different. In fact, if you do the same thing as everybody else does, you'll get the exact same results as everybody else does. And if you look around and you look at the results of what everybody else is doing, it's not very pretty. So Jesus comes along and he says, guys, as Christians, you're leaders, whether you like it or not. You are shining a light, and it needs to be a bright one so that it catches their attention. They go, what is that? That's completely different than anything we've seen. And here's the thing. I love what Jesus follows up and he says this. He says, don't think I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. Listen, he says, grace is here. Forgiveness for your sins is here. I've fulfilled that. I haven't come to abolish them. I've come to fulfill them. Jesus was a perfect man. He fulfilled all of the requirements of the law. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. He's basically saying all of those laws in the Old Testament that are there, they were there for your good, and they're still there for your good. Now, you can't live up to them, so Jesus came to pay the price for it. But half, if not more, of the problems in the world would be solved if we would just follow the 10 Commandments. That stuff is there for our good. It's not there to make our, to cramp our style. You cramping my style, man. No, that stuff that's there this is what I've said this over and over again. The Bible is the framework for how to live in harmony with the seen and the unseen realities of our existence. All that stuff in the Bible is there to liberate you to live a truly full life. So Jesus says all those rules, all the law is not going away because it's actually for your good. Now you can't fulfill it, but it's still for your good. And he says, therefore, if anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commandments and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. So he says, we don't get away from teaching the law and the prophets. We don't get away from that. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom. Now, this is the really potent part. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. And here's what he's saying here. You can't look to the people in charge for what leadership should look like. If you're saying, oh, well, he got away with it, it's not going to go well for you. Because first of all, you don't know that he actually got away with it. A lot of times it seems like people are getting away with stuff and they are paying a price for it that you can't even see, but they hide it well. They're paying a price in anxiety or anger or family issues at home. But he's saying this: don't look to the people in charge for what you should be doing as a leader. You've got to have a higher standard for yourself. You've got to look at things from a completely different way. In fact, you've got to do most of the time the complete opposite of your natural tendency. Which brings me to a Seinfeld clip that I absolutely love. Watch this.
Every decision I've ever made in my entire life has been wrong. My life is the complete opposite of everything I want it to be. Every instinct I have in every aspect of life, be it something to wear, something to eat, it's all been wrong.
Tuna on toast, coleslaw, cup of coffee.
Yeah. No, wait a minute. I always have tuna on toast. Nothing's ever worked out for me with tuna on toast. I want the complete opposite of tuna on toast. Chicken salad on rye, untoasted, with a side of potato salad, and a cup of tea.
Well, there's no telling what can happen from this.
You know, chicken salad's not the opposite of tuna. Salmon's the opposite of tuna, because salmon swim against the current, and the tuna swim with it.
Good for the tuna.
George, you know that woman just looked at you.
So what? What am I supposed to do?
Go talk to her.
Elaine, bald men with no jobs and no money who live with their parents don't approach strange women.
Well, here's your chance to try the opposite. Instead of tuna salad and being intimidated by women, chicken salad and going right up to them.
Yeah, I should do the opposite. I should.
If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right.
Yes, I will do the opposite. I used to sit here and do nothing and regret it for the rest of the day. So now I will do the opposite, and I will do something. Excuse me, I couldn't help but notice that you were looking in my direction.
Oh, yes, I was. You just ordered the same exact lunch as me.
My name is George. I'm unemployed and I live with my parents.
I'm Victoria. Hi.
Sometimes you've got to do the complete opposite of what everybody else around you is doing and what your natural instinct is, because that's what a leader has to do. And that's how you establish yourself as different. That's how you let your light shine before men. And here's the thing, guys. We live in a world that says this is what you need to do. Stand up for your rights. Double down. Don't be humble. If nobody promotes you, you have to promote yourself. And Jesus comes along and he says, no, guys, listen. This is what I said a second ago. If you do the same thing everybody else is doing, you're going to get the same results as everyone else. And there are a lot of people running around claiming to be leaders, but they don't have respect. And nobody's actually looking to them for leadership because they're not doing anything different than anybody else. But you are not those people. And that's where Jesus comes along and he says, guys, I want you to respond in the complete opposite spirit of what your normal tendency would be. Here's what he says. You've heard it said, don't murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I'm telling you, there's a higher standard I want you to live to so that you will be a leader in this area. He says, but I tell you, anyone who's angry with a brother or sister will be subjected to judgment. So if you're offering your gift at the altar and therefore remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar, go and be reconciled to them. Then come and talk to me. Basically, he's saying. You say, well, but they did me wrong. They did me wrong. Well, maybe it's time that you step up and be the leader and do the right thing, which is choose to forgive them. Ask for their forgiveness, whatever it may be. The complete opposite spirit of what the world tells you to do. You have every right to be angry at them. Yeah, you do have every right to. But here's the thing. As Christians, we surrendered our rights to Jesus. And he says, now I need you to step up and lead. I need you to be an example of a whole other kingdom. Because like I said during the prayer time, Jesus didn't come down here to take sides. He came down here to take over. He brought his kingdom to earth, and his kingdom operates by a whole different set of standards. And he says, I need you to respond in the opposite spirit. Whatever your natural instinct is, do the opposite, like in that clip. And you may just be surprised at what happens. Here's another thing he said. You've heard it said, hey, don't commit adultery. But I tell you, if you're going to be a leader, you've got to live by a whole other standard. He says, anybody that even looks at a woman lustfully, you've already committed adultery with her in your heart. He says, it's not enough to just go, well, we didn't actually do anything. But yet your heart is already with that person. He says, if you really want to lead, you have to stay away from even a hint of immorality. Because everybody else, they go right up to the line and see how far they can get without officially breaking the rules. But you know who the leaders are? The ones that say, I'm never even getting to that line. And here's the thing. People may make fun of you. They may say you're missing out on things. But I'll tell you this. When stuff hits the fan in their life, they're going to know who to run to. If you've been walking your talk, living different, standing up for what's right, doing the opposite of your natural instinct, doing the opposite of the negativity around you, standing up. And it's not because you're better than people. It's because you realize Jesus set you free from that stuff. And you want those people to be free from that stuff too. So you give them an example, because here's the thing. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And there's a lot of people in your circle right now who just don't know the freedom of what it's like to live in Christ. And some of you are professing Christ and you don't even know the freedom of what it's like to walk in Christ, because you've refused to let go of the things that are natural tendencies to you. Instead of choosing that opposite spirit that Jesus says to walk in, do the opposite of your instinct by his power in you. You said, yeah, but my instinct is familiar and everybody else is doing it. And he's saying, I don't care if everybody else is doing it. I need you to lead. And you just step up, put your shoulders back, stand up, and be a light to the world around you. Because here's the thing, you're already having an effect on people. What kind of effect are you going to have? And now more than ever, we need people who respond in an opposite spirit. People who are humble instead of proud. People who tell the truth instead of lie. Even little lies to make yourself look good. People who just tell the truth. Here's who I am. Here's what I am. God set me free, but man, I'm still struggling. I'm working through it. Tell the truth. Be honest. Don't cheat. Honor God. Do the opposite of everything that's your natural instinct. And here's the thing. Don't be surprised if people start looking to you, because you will set a different standard. You're raising the standard around you. And that's what we need right now. Because you can look around and say, well, everybody else is doing it. And you get involved in the fray. Everybody else is saying those harsh things online. If we don't stand up for our truth, they'll run us over with their truth. And you start lashing out online, saying harsh, mean things. And you all of a sudden just become the very thing you hate. Because you're responding in the same spirit. When Jesus says, nope, you're a leader, you respond in a different spirit. Don't do what's normal, don't do what's natural, do what's supernatural. And that only comes through his power working in you. So when you feel that tendency to go, oh, I want to do this, you say, God, this is not me anymore. You've said the same spirit that raised Christ Jesus from the dead is living in me. So man, I need your help to respond in the opposite spirit. I know it's a goofy example, but to be like George and walk up to that girl and just tell the truth about where you're at. Here's who I am. Here's what's going on. But I'm going to be completely honest and open. And when you do that, man, you will be a leader. And you already are a leader. So what kind of leader are you going to be? You guys receive that? We're going to be talking about that this whole month. And my prayer for you is that we will be leaders in our community. That people look and say, those people are different. Because here's the thing, you can be a Christian and not be any different than anybody around you. People would say, well, theologically, I don't agree with that. Well, whatever. I see it all the time. People say they believe in Jesus, but they don't look any different than anybody around them. But when you look different and you choose to not be normal, you will stand out. You will let your light shine before men. They will see your good works. And here's the thing, in a dark world right now, we need a really bright light. And my prayer for all of you is that you will be that bright light in your family, to your kids, to your marriage, to your workplace, to this whole community. We need bright lights, and you are a light, so make sure you're a bright one. Let me pray for you guys. Lord, we thank you so much that your spirit lives within us. We have the freedom.
If you are ever in the Seguin area, come visit us on Sunday mornings at 9 or 11 a.m. Or you can just download our app and receive our weekly messages right to your phone. Just text CC Seguin to 77977 and click on the link that you receive. May the remainder of your week be enriched with God's favor and blessings.